Beloved, I am here to tell you, regardless of who say what when, the most powerful black man in America is Minister Louis Farrakhan. So what you want, describe it how you will.
Yes, sir.
You tell me which black man, which part of America could say, I want 1 million black men to meet me in Washington, D.C., and he could expect 1.5 million black men to show up. I am so proud, so pleased to be able to join you in the audience as we listen to the most powerful black man in America address us on our Emancipation Day, July 3rd, 2008. Minister Louis Farrakhan is the only man that could call 1 million black men together. I say so. I thank you. I am honored. Thank you.
Thank you. Brothers and sisters, in the name of Allah, God, the most merciful, we thank him for all of his prophets, from Abraham to Moses, Jesus, Muhammad, and the scriptures that they brought. As a student of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, I'm greatly honored and privileged to represent him and his teachings to this wonderful setting here in the beautiful island of St. Croix, and to wish all of you peace. In the words of Jesus, when he met his disciples and left his disciples, he always said, "Peace be with you." And he did not speak English. He spoke ancient Egyptian, Arabic, and Hebrew, as well as Aramaic. So if Jesus were here in Hebrew, he would say, "Shalom Aleichem." And in Aramaic and Arabic, he would say, "Assalamu alaikum." And in English, our greeting is, "Peace be unto you." I am so honored to be here with you to celebrate the 160th anniversary of emancipation of these Virgin Islands. I want to thank Mr. Moorhead for his magnificent representation of the history. This is a history done so well, so energetic, that as I sat listening to that history, I could see General Boudou. I could see Martin King. I could see 10,000 descendants of Africa marching on the fort. I could see the Governor General bowing down. And I could see and feel the joy of our ancestors when he said that the Danish, West Indies, and the blacks that lived here were free. I'm honored beyond words by President Mary Moorhead and Executive Director Pam Richards from the Yesterday, Today, and Tomorrow organization and committee of the History, Culture, and Tradition Foundation. I am so grateful to them, for it is they who made it possible for me to be here today, and I am thankful for the invitation. It's always proper when you come to a house to respect the head of that house. And so we are grateful to Governor John Percy DeYoung, and it would be disrespectful of me to be in the Virgin Islands and not say joy to him on Emancipation Day, and hoping that the spirit of emancipation, true emancipation, will be his spirit to lead this nation forward. I want to thank the Police Commissioner, Novell Francis, because I have enjoyed tremendous police protection and the honor that the police of the Virgin Islands have shown me. I have to pay honor and respect to Commissioner Novell Francis, to Chief Oakland Benter and the staff of the Virgin Islands Police Department, to Chief Louis W. Flynn Jr. and the staff from the Virgin Islands Port Authority, and certainly to Sergeant Winsworth McFarland and his staff. I thank all of you, for your courtesy, for your welcome of me and my staff. And a special thanks to former Senator Adelbert Bryan, and when I came here about 6 weeks ago on the Tom Joyner Fantastic Voyage, Senator Ussi told me that there was a celebration that will be held on the 3rd of July, and they want to invite you to come. Would you come? And I said, Senator, we are rededicating our mosque in Chicago, and I think it is scheduled for the 4th of July. However, I will call you back and let you know if the construction people have finished their work by that time. When I got back to Chicago, it looked like our construction would be delayed, so I called Senator Ussi and told him, I will come to the Virgin Islands, to St. Croix. And that's when President Moorhead and Pam Richards extended this invitation to me. I want to say again how honored I am to be here, particularly on this very special day. Now, this day is special because people made a sacrifice. And without that sacrifice, emancipation and true freedom is only a dream. But when Professor Moorhead, who I was honored to be in his classroom today, talked about General Boudou and Martin King, and I read something about the three great women who I think may appear on a quarter that the U.S. is minting. I'm not sure that that's the one that was chosen, but these three courageous women. What it tells me about us, and particularly the Virgin Islands, there are very many great men and women that made it possible for us to be here today. What is unfortunate, however, is that Mr. Moorhead had to tell us our history today, but this should be taught in every school from the primary grades, nursery school, all the way up, because if you don't know what was, you cannot properly understand what is, and we are ill prepared for the future. General Boudou is needed again. Martin King is needed again. Activists are needed again. But if you don't know your history, you will think you are really free. And that's why it's so important. And I feel so honored to be here today, because I'm hoping and I'm praying that the words that God may give me to say will so inspire you, not only here at this historic place, but throughout the islands of the Virgin Islands, that activism will come alive again, because there is much work to be done to make the emancipation that took place 160 years ago real. Now, that word emancipation, I want us to take a look at it. Tomorrow, July 4th, in America, they will celebrate 232 years. They don't call it emancipation. They call it independence. What's the difference between emancipation on the 3rd of July in the American Virgin Islands and the independence that Americans will celebrate tomorrow? What is the difference between theirs and ours? There is a difference, you know. And the difference is this: they fought the British. They overcame the British. Then they could declare their independence. They cut off the ties from their former colonial master, and then they became the masters of their destiny. You are not that yet. We are not that yet. So let's look at what emancipation is. It comes from a Latin root, mancipere, which is the infinitive of the verb, which means to free from your hand, not necessarily from your control. I'm going to say that again. See, the Danes are not here now, and they're not a lot of Americans, but the power of control is here. And the control of the destiny of the descendants of Africa that live not only here but in the Caribbean is real. They freed us from their hand, but not from their control. And that's why when you want to be properly educated, you'll go to America, you'll go to Denmark, you'll go to France, you'll go to England, you'll go to the Netherlands. Whoever the former master was, you go there for higher education. And when you go there, they don't educate you to come back and set up for your people what they set up for theirs. So today, let we talk about real emancipation. Now, freedom is never given. Freedom is earned by self-development. When you grew up in your mother's house, as I grew up in mine, that was a loving dictatorship. My mother told me where I could sleep, when I could go out, and when I should come in. There was no democracy. I couldn't tell her what food I wanted for dinner. What she put on the table, I had to sit down and eat. I didn't mind because I wasn't working. So she would tell me, when I would go to the refrigerator, she said, "You put something in there?" I said, "No, ma'am." She said, "Well, when you go to work and get some money and put something in there, then you could go. But in the meantime, I put the thing in there, so you won't have to ask me what you want." Well. Just a principle. Because if somebody else is preparing education for you, food for you, jobs for you, clothing for you, you are not doing any of these things for yourself, then they feel they have a right to dictate how you go, where you go, when you go. Now you see the younger ones today, my young brothers and sisters, you don't have the spirit of the real activists of yesterday. And it's because you really think you're free. Now, there was an argument that took place in the Bible, in the book of John. Jesus is talking to Jewish leaders. And he said to them, quote, "You shall know the truth, and the truth shall set you free." Then they answered Jesus, saying, "How come you say we shall be set free when we have never been in bondage to any man?" But Jesus knew something about bondage that they were not aware of. So he said to them that their enslavement was on another level. So it was truth and truth alone that would set them free. To you today that think about the sacrifice of General Boudou, not Boudreaux, but Boudou. When we think about the sacrifice of Martin King and the 10,000 that gathered around this fort, today, if we had their spirit, a sacrifice has to be made again to make our freedom real. But how can you make that sacrifice if you are enslaved on a mental plane but think you are free? So when Jesus said, "You shall know the truth, and the truth will set you free," then what is it that has enslaved the minds of Africa and those of us in the Caribbean, those of us in the United States? Black people all over the world need to be really set free. Now, as I said earlier, freedom comes from self-development. Look at the female. Her womb could be the size of a small fruit when she's not pregnant. But the moment the life germ contacts the egg and the first cell of life begins, that womb then is big enough in its present form to satisfy that development. But as that development starts and grows into a clot, the womb has to expand to accommodate the growth of the clot. Then the clot becomes an embryo, and the womb expands more. Then when it becomes a fetus, the womb has to expand, but when that is within the womb is fully developed, I don't care what mother planned. It might have been a dance that night. It might have been a party. It might have been something historic, but when that baby's head begins to push against that pelvic bone, and you know, in the last stages of development, the feet were at the place where they shouldn't be, and the head was up. Then there's a turn, and the head comes down to its natural position to forge the way to freedom for that life. If the mother does not lay down and give up that life, then both could die. So it is when our people are ready to be free. The grip that the former slave and colonial masters has on us, it begins to give. But they don't want to release what is within. So as a child gets to a baby gets to a certain development and the head turns down, there's a show of blood. The water breaks. The baby is coming. There'll never be true freedom without a show of blood. And there will never be true freedom without proper leadership taking its place. Sometimes the leadership is really the foot. And the real leadership is hiding. But when the time comes, just as it was 160 years ago, a man moving back and forth between the different plantations because he knew the science of timing. Don't cook it too long. Don't cook it too short. You got to have it just right, or you burn up the sugar, or it becomes sour, you can't use it. So science was involved. Boudou, because he was so good at the timing of things, had freedom to move about. As he agitated, see, the womb had to expand now to give birth to what was coming, but they wanted to control what happened. Now watch this. In the book of Ezekiel in the Bible, go home and check it out. There's a scripture there about a baby that was born, but it was polluted in the afterbirth of the mother. And there was no one present to cut the umbilical cord, and there was no one present to wash the baby, to swaddle the baby, and to salt the baby. So the baby was dying in the pollution of the afterbirth because there was no one present to perform a necessary function. So the Bible says, and I walked by and saw this condition, and I said, not I, the party in the scripture, said, live Because when you're polluted in the afterbirth and no one is present to cut the umbilical cord, to wash the baby, to swaddle the baby, soon that baby will die. So what the prophets are showing us is that slavery, listen to me good, you cannot be truly free from your former slave masters or colonial masters until the umbilical cord that connects you to your former master is cut, so you can breathe on your own, you can see and hear and smell. But even at that point, you need somebody to wash you from the blood of the afterbirth. You need somebody to swaddle you, somebody to salt you, somebody to prepare you and nurture you for the freedom that your development in the womb has earned. Does that make sense? Okay, now watch how this develops. See, in North America, Abraham Lincoln, mind you, gave an Emancipation Proclamation. King George didn't give no Emancipation Proclamation for America. They fought, they bled, they died, they earned the right to be free. Now here we are, emancipated. Remember what I said the definition was? Free from the hand, but not necessarily from the control. So here we are now. Why are we divided like this in St. Croix when we need unity so badly? What is the problem between Frederiksted and Christiansted? That we now, who need unity so bad, but we have this antagonism among ourselves. Please, what is the problem when the educational system is failing our children? The economics of the islands are so desperate. The cost of living getting higher and higher. The price of gas, the price of food. How then can we survive with this kind of economic reality? Listen to me carefully now. With the economic reality as it is, the lack of education and qualification for our young people, then the tendency is to go deeper into violence, into drugs. And the violence is committing murder now, more in the Virgin Islands than ever before. People are no longer safe in their homes. Professor Moorhead talked about a wave coming in those 14 years from the time the British emancipated their slaves to the time that Boudou and King and others got the Danish to commit to emancipation. But you are still covered in the blood of the pollution of your days in slavery. Hear me. You are covered with the life that the slave master put in you, putting the lighter against the darker against the lighter, the rich against the poor against the rich, the educated against the uneducated, Those that have privilege from those that don't have privilege at all. The women against the men against the women. This is the pollution of the blood of our enslavement that we need to be washed from. Jesus told the people, wash and be clean. We have to be cleaned from that pollution. Somebody has to wash us. Somebody has to prepare us for freedom, because our former colonial and slave masters have never prepared us to be truly free from them. So you can walk around in Frederickstead and Christiansted, and you can go from St. Thomas to St. Croix or St. John, or the other islands. But what are you going to do? Wherever you go, you carry that state that your mind is in. And so the book says, you shall know the truth, and the truth shall set you free. What truth? What truth do we need to know? First, we need to know God. And we need to know our direct connection to Him. And we need to know who we are. This is very important, because if you don't know yourself, you can't love yourself. If you don't love yourself, you won't unite with yourself. And if you don't love yourself, then Christiansted will be different from Frederickstead. And Barbados will be different from Jamaica, and Jamaica will be different from Trinidad, and Trinidad will be different from Martinique and Guadeloupe and all the islands. All of us now divided against ourselves. So the enemy is making the Caribbean their paradise at our expense, because you are not yet free. Somebody blowing the conch shell, I know what that means, you know. My dear brothers and sisters, see, we have to develop to be free. Development starts with getting the right idea and thoughts in your head about yourself, about your relationship to your brothers and sisters, about our relationship to God. You got to get that right. Because once you get your relationship to God, to self, and each other right, it automatically follows. When you go to school, what are you being taught? How are you being prepared educationally to manage these islands? Yes, we got black governor, black senator, black this, black that, black the other. But who running things? I just asking a question. If you are black but you're not running things, you emancipated but you're not independent. You got a flag, you got a government, you got a national anthem, you got a parliament, but you're not free. Tell me this. In St. John, white people came down, they bought land and they set up beautiful homes. The tax rate went up. As the taxes went up, black people who had homes over there could not afford it. So they either were forced to sell their property and move to St. Thomas, move to St. Croix, move or go to the United States. Now that could not happen if we in the legislature were fighting for the little man and the little man's right to be free in his own house. But when we want to hobnob with our former colonial and slave master and don't see the need to be true to your people and the needs of your people, then you will sell out your destiny with weak laws, corrupt laws that favor the rich and dog the poor. I hear the conch shell blowing, you know. Listen, my dear family, you know, when we don't grow up with love for ourselves and love for our people, it's easy to become a whore. See, if you love your people, you can't be bought. Now, they call me anti-Semitic. I hate that appellation or name applied to me because I have never been hateful of the Jewish people. Never. Critical, yes. Hateful, no. Look, there is no Jewish child that is unaware of their culture, their history, and the suffering that Jews endured under Hitler, so that they with strength can say today, never again. You cannot go to any school in America and not hear something of their Holocaust. But you can go to your schools right here in the Virgin Islands and you cannot hear about your suffering and the suffering of our ancestors that made it possible for us to advance on the road to freedom. Now, my dear brothers and sisters, when you are truly liberated here, then your eyes see for you and your people. Your ears hear. Your tongue speaks. Your arms work for the liberation of your people. Who's running the businesses down here? Is it you? Why not? See, look, if you want white people to respect us as an equal, then we have to be free enough to make ourselves the equal of others. But if others are providing for us what we could, if united and educated properly, provide for ourselves, there's no way in heaven or hell that they will ever see us as equal as long as they are providing our necessities of life. So when that man walked by and saw that baby polluted in its blood and said, "Live," and I said, "Live," that meant he was going to engage in the activity that would cut the umbilical cord, wash and cleanse the baby, swaddle it, salt it, nurse it, till it becomes an independent people. Now here we are. I have nothing against my Arab brothers and sisters or other ethnicities that own the businesses in St. Croix, St. Thomas, St. John, throughout the Caribbean, in the United States, wherever, Africa. We are not producing for ourselves. So life is activity. Life is business. Busy. Look at the word business. The first 4 letters is busy. Where you say, what go on? You gonna answer nothing. If you're not busy working to develop a future for yourself, you're not alive. You're dead. And dead people have eyes, but they can't see. They got ears, but they can't hear. I don't know why you're singing all these songs. The dead don't know nothing. Can't smell a flower you send. The undertaker has to pull them out from where they are and dress them up and fix them up so you could come and see your loved one. Because they're dead. When white people come to the islands, you know what they're looking at? The remains of a funeral parlor that is beginning to stink. Ooh. Oh, that's an ugly picture, but I'm going to tell it anyway. Say, look, the Bible says they are a stench in my nostrils all the day long. See, when you are dead, there's a stench that comes up from the dead. That's why the living and the dead, no matter how much you love the life of the loved one that passed, don't stay in the same bed, you know. After a while, you're going to get out for sure. Or you're going to call somebody, come get the dead and bury it. When white people come to the islands and look at us, what do you think they see? They see what they see in America. They see what they see in Africa. They see what they see when they look at us. And it is not because you are an inferior. You are not inferior to any human being, but in our present state, we are inferior until somebody will perform that duty and say, come alive. And when you come alive, the first thing you do when you wake up out of your sleep, you go to the bathroom and look in the mirror and see what sleep did to you last night. Your mouth stink. Drool come down the face, so. So the first thing you got to do is get some soap, get some water, get yourself ready. We need a cleanup of all of us so that the world of civilized people will say, welcome. You are a part of the civilized nations of the earth. Civilized people don't murder each other like this. Civilized people protect and respect their females. Civilized people adorn their head with knowledge, wisdom, understanding, and the arts and sciences of civilized people. And if you don't have this, then somebody has failed us. And that's why 160 years from that great day of emancipation, we are still in bad condition. So in my conclusion, it's going to take all of us working together to solve the problems of St. Croix, St. Thomas, St. John, Tortola, all of the West Indies, all of us in America, but there's too much division among us. And you know, it's not so much the people as it is the leaders who can't seem to agree. And they have, each one has their own followers, so they poison their followers with their hatred of the next group. So you have one church on this corner preaching against the church on that corner. And if you're a Catholic, you don't want to be bothered with the Episcopalians, or the Episcopalians don't want to be bothered with the Church of God in Christ. And all of us claim Christ, but Christ is not divided against himself nor his Father. So how could you claim him and be so divided and so weak because of your division that you can't handle your problems here in St. Croix? Now, I don't know what's going on at, what do you call that place? Hess? What do you call it? Ovensa. Yes. Big money. Big money. Jobs. At what wage? You work in the hotel industry? How much they paying you? And can you make it with what you are being paid as the price of food and gas and clothing and everything else keeps going up? See, it's going to take a unified effort with government, with education, with religion, with activists, and both. If there are two political parties here, are there two parties here? Three? Well, that ain't the Father, Son, and the Holy Ghost, you know. Those three are one. But politics becomes very divisive, especially in the Caribbean. Now, as long as the two parties are fighting, or three parties are fighting each other for power, then they can't even agree when one party comes up with a good idea. We're going to fight it anyway because we are the opposition. See, this kind of madness is what keeps us weak. Now, in closing, we have to take control of the education of our children. We have to look at what they're being taught. Is it beneficial? Well, Christopher Columbus come here so, Antifa, all these places, and we're going to celebrate Columbus Day. But the truth is, somebody was already here. And Africans have been in the Western Hemisphere before any European came here. Did you know that? You did? Okay. Then, how then will you give up your original position to a stranger who took from you what was yours and now claims it as his? And you have no court to go to for the redress of your grievance to say, this is yours. So somebody is dictating how the Virgin Islands should run. Now, I know a wise deceiver will always make you think you have what you don't. They call it in football faking out the opponent. You hide the ball and make them think the ball is in the hand of this one when you put it in the hand of that one. See, you and I have been deceived, especially those of us in positions of power, because you think you have what you don't have. So you don't fight to get the real power, because the real power will make you able to make others bow. But if money is your God, then you bow down to money, you get bought, you get sold, and the people get sold out. Preachers, I'm talking to you now. See, this is a Christian island. But how then can we say that what we're preaching is effective when the murder rate is going up, robbery going up, rape going up, destruction of our women and girls going up. If we are preaching the gospel of Jesus Christ that had power to open the eyes of the blind, make the deaf hear and the dumb walk, speak rather, and take an invalid and make that man not only get up but take up his bed and walk, what kind of gospel are we preaching? That our people got eyes but they can't see. They got ears but they don't hear. They got a tongue and they're afraid to speak up and speak out for their own justice. Something is wrong with religion that makes us able to sing and shout hallelujah, and then when we leave the church or the temple or the mosque, we can't go out and change the reality under which we live. That kind of religion is for the garbage pail. And that's why Jesus in the book of Revelation said, behold, I make all things new. There will be a new heaven and a new earth, and the former things will pass away. And those who become true followers of the true Christ, he makes them into new creatures. You're not new. You could wear a dashiki, that's all right, but that ain't new. You could dress up in the bed and thing and, make believe you're new. But if you think like the old slave and you act like the old slave, then you have not met Jesus. You don't know, you know his name, and you have a right to know his name. You love him, and you have every right to love him. But if the arch deceiver is going to deceive the whole world, he's going to deceive the world about the man that would give life to the people and cleanse the people and free the people by the truth that comes from his lips. I hope and I pray that when you and I leave here today, armed with the history that Brother Moorhead gave us of yesterday, knowing that we need activism today to bring justice to the islands. We need activism today to clean up the toxic wastes that are polluting the water. We need activism today to turn back the tide of cancer and diabetes and AIDS. We need activism today to begin to put pressure where pressure is due until change comes. And I close with these words. Brother Moorhead and those who are fighting for reparations. If you have an automobile and you get in an accident, you take it to somebody to repair it, but you also have an assessor to assess the damage and tell you what it would take to bring that automobile to a state of repair. If we assess the damage that slavery has done to us, it needs repair. First of all, Moorhead is not our name. Heiliger is not our name. Gottlieb is not our name. The Dutch that enslaved us gave us their name. The British that enslaved us gave us English names. The French that enslaved us gave us French names. The Spaniards that enslaved us gave us Spanish names. Huh? The Dutch, the Danish, the Portuguese, the British, the French, the Spaniards, all of them gave us their names, their language, their culture. Talk to me. And their religion. So, okay, I don't mind you giving me religion as long as it functions for me like it functioned for you. But if you give me a religion and all I could do is pray, but you own everything, then that religion ain't working for me. I need a religion that will work for me. Hello? So, we've got to really look at things now deeper. I would wish to come back at some point and sit down with the preachers and let's talk real gospel. I'm not trying to convert nobody. You already are in the nature that God created you. All we have to do is feed that nature and you will be yourself. And that's why Jesus said to Peter, lovest thou me? Yeah, well, feed my sheep. He wasn't talking about feeding them some government cheese. He was telling you to feed the people according to the nature of their creation, the truth that would stimulate the God within them. Then they will rise up and get things right. Lovest thou me, Peter? Feed my lambs. These are the babies. Feed them the food that will make them truly free. And you can't feed it to them unless somebody first feeds it to you. And you have to be humble enough to recognize, wow, I've been emancipated 160 years and I still ain't free. Something is missing. And if we can provide what has been provided for us, and we can provide it to you, then if it's good, accept it, unite with it, use it to build St. Croix into a paradise, not only for those who enjoy paradise, but a paradise for those that Jesus called the least of these. I thank Ms. Moorhead. I thank Ms. Richards. I thank the committee. I know it was difficult to raise the type of monies that it took to bring 6 of us on the airplane. We chose not to fly first class because as long as we could get here, that's important. But I hope that God will bless me to come back again to serve you in the manner that I know you need to be served. The only thing I ask in return is that you rise up and fulfill your destiny. It doesn't have to be bloody. And the more united you are, the less blood you will ever have to shed. And just like Boudou, just like Boudou, not Boudou, came with 10,000. And the boys on the inside took away the gunpowder and put sand, so they had nothing to shoot. See, that's telling you that some have to work from the inside, you know. them working on the outside, those working on the inside, but all working for one common cause, the total liberation of the people. And I say this to the whites who are privileged, this will help you. Believe me when I tell you, the future is not in the hands of those who will deal unjustly with the masses. God is judging this world now. And that's why you see the weather turning like it's turning, disaster coming like it's coming, the dollar falling like it's falling, other nations rising like they're rising. You cannot survive in the future if you want to hold on to that sick mentality of white supremacy and black inferiority. You got to change. All of us have to change. You have to change from being the old child of a slave master to be a free black man and woman, and they have to change from being an old slave master to walk and let their own gifts make them rise, but not rise because they're white. When the world is free like that, it'll be a new heaven and a new earth, for the former things shall have passed away. Thank you for listening, and may God bless each and every one of you as I greet you in peace. Assalamu alaikum. I want to acknowledge my wife and my daughter who is present. Is it possible they could come up? This is my wife of 55 years. And I couldn't be what I am or do what I do if I didn't have a woman like this, not behind me, by my side and sometime in front of me. And I thank her for the 9 children that she gave me and the 40-some grandchildren that I have and the 16 great-grands, and they still come in. We are busy, you know. You know, I tell you about busyness. Look at her. Isn't she beautiful? And this is my daughter, my second daughter, Maria. And this is my son, Mustafa. He's the head of my security. And this man to the right, what should I tell them about him? Yes. He's a Grand Master, 10th degree Dan, black belt. And he's known all over the country and in many parts of the world as the master of the martial arts. Brother Rafu, come. And of course, the security that's standing around me, they are some of those who are with me and have helped me. And of course, this beautiful young man is one of the sons of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, and he is our minister in Miami and the Caribbean, Central and South America. He speaks many languages, but he's going to be coming back to the Virgin Islands to do his best, not to create division, but to feed unity among us all. Brother Rasul. Now, I have to, please, Madam President, I want to say how honored I am that this great woman and her committee have hosted our visit. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
The minister told a secret that I had wished to tell. We are strapped for cash. And I can't say to you all, and you all know that in my role, former role in tourism, that I have met many, many people who have held all echelons of positions, all manners of positions, from prime ministers to premiers, and you know what I mean. When we came forward and straight up was honest, and we admitted that we were strapped for funds, there was absolutely no hesitation. And I have never seen this in my experience with any, I don't want to use the word celebrity lightly, but we need to understand that when somebody of the stature and the family of this individual all elect to accommodate us at no hesitation to fly coach, it is unheard of. And we do sincerely appreciate it, sir.
Thank you.
Oh my goodness. Oh, he gonna make me fall down now. It wasn't.
Well, I'm going to tell you what I told her. When I go back to the United States, I'm going to send her a few $1,000s back for her treasury so that she can continue the work that she and the committee are doing. Thank you.
I don't need to say any more. Let it all speak for itself. When we sat and talked about the trueness of character, there was only really one choice of what we could present to the minister. And there is only one individual in Frederiksted, in this city, that is of our own, who could have crafted these conch shell horns. That is someone that we know well, somebody who led the call of order today, Mr. Wilfred Alec, Junie Bomba as we know him. He has selected a special conch shell, and we are not going to put the minister under pressure. He recognizes it. We know he knows how to blow it. So don't ask for him to blow it.
You're going to teach me.
Mr. Bomba is going to present it to him now on behalf of the committee.
Good afternoon. On behalf of the whole Caribbean, people of St. Croix, I am presenting this horn to the minister from all of us. We love him. We want him to come back soon.
Thank you. Now tell me how to do it.
No, here.
I'm going to learn, you know.
You vibrate your lips.
Oh, on this?
And then you put it in there.
All right. Boudon! Thank you. Wonderful setting here in the beautiful island of St. Croix, and to wish all of you peace. In the words of Jesus, when he met his disciples and left his disciples, he always said, "Peace be with you." And he did not speak English. He spoke ancient Egyptian, Arabic, and Hebrew, as well as Aramaic. So if Jesus were here in Hebrew, he would say Shalom Aleichem, and in Aramaic and Arabic he would say Assalamu Alaikum, and in English our greeting is peace be unto you. I am so honored to be here with you to celebrate the 160th anniversary of emancipation of these Virgin Islands. I want to thank Mr. Moorhead for his magnificent representation of the history. This is a history done so well, so energetic, that as I sat listening to that history, I could see General Boudou. I could see Martin King. I could see 10,000 descendants of Africa marching on the fort. I could see the Governor General bowing down. And I could see and feel the joy of our ancestors when he said that the Danish, West Indies, and the blacks that lived here were free. I'm honored beyond words by President Mary Moorhead and Executive Director Pan Richards from the Yesterday, Today, and Tomorrow organization and committee of the History, Culture, and Tradition Foundation. I am so grateful to them, for it is they who made it possible for me to be here today, and I am thankful for the invitation. It's always proper when you come to a house to respect the head of that house. And so we are grateful to Governor John Percy the Young, and it would be disrespectful of me to be in the Virgin Islands and not say joy to him on Emancipation Day, and hoping that the spirit of emancipation, true emancipation, will be his spirit to lead this nation forward. I want to thank the Police Commissioner, Novell Francis, because I have enjoyed tremendous police protection and the honor that the police of the Virgin Islands have shown me. I have to pay honor and respect to Commissioner Novell Francis, to Chief Oakland Benter and the staff of the Virgin Islands Police Department, to Chief Louis W. Flynn Jr. and the staff from the Virgin Islands Port Authority, and certainly to Sergeant Winsworth McFarland and his staff. I thank all of you, for your courtesy, for your welcome of me and my staff. And a special thanks to former Senator Adelbert Bryan, and when I came here about 6 weeks ago on the Tom Joyner Fantastic Voyage, Senator Ussi told me that there was a celebration that will be held on the 3rd of July, and they want to invite you to come. Would you come? And I said, Senator, we are rededicating our mosque in Chicago, and I think it is scheduled for the 4th of July. However, I will call you back and let you know if the construction people have finished their work by that time. When I got back to Chicago, it looked like our construction would be delayed, so I called Senator Ussi and told him, I will come to the Virgin Islands, to St. Croix. And that's when President Moorhead and Pam Richards extended this invitation to me. I want to say again how honored I am to be here, particularly on this very special day. Now, this day is special because people made a sacrifice. And without that sacrifice, emancipation and true freedom is only a dream. But when Professor Moorhead, who I was honored to be in his classroom today, talked about General Boudou and Martin King, and I read something about the three great women who I think may appear on a quarter that the U.S. is minting. I'm not sure that that's the one that was chosen, but these three courageous women. What it tells me about us, and particularly the Virgin Islands, there are very many great men and women that made it possible for us to be here today. What is unfortunate, however, is that Mr. Moorhead had to tell us our history today, but this should be taught in every school from the primary grades, nursery school, all the way up, because if you don't know what was, you cannot properly understand what is, and we are ill prepared for the future. General Boudou is needed again. Martin King is needed again.
Beloved, I am here to tell you, regardless of who said what when, the most powerful black man in America is Minister Louis Farrakhan. So what you want, describe it how you will.
Yes, sir.
You tell me which black man, which part of America could say, I want 1 million black men to meet me in Washington, D.C., and he could expect 1.5 million black men to show up. I am so proud, so pleased to be able to join you in the audience as we listen to the most powerful black man in America address us on our Emancipation Day, July 3rd, 2008. Minister Louis Farrakhan is the only man that could call 1 million black men together. I say so. I thank you. I am honored. Thank you.
Thank you. Brothers and sisters, in the name of Allah, God, the most merciful, we thank him for all of his prophets, from Abraham to Moses, Jesus, Muhammad, and the scriptures that they brought. As a student of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, I'm greatly honored and privileged to represent him and his teachings to this. Activists are needed again. But if you don't know your history, you will think you are really free. And that's why it's so important. And I feel so honored to be here today, because I'm hoping and I'm praying that the words that God may give me to say will so inspire you, not only here at this historic place, but throughout the islands of the Virgin Islands, that activism will come alive again, because there is much work to be done to make the emancipation that took place 160 years ago real. Now, that word emancipation, I want us to take a look at it. Tomorrow, July 4th, in America, they will celebrate 232 years. They don't call it emancipation. They call it independence. What's the difference between emancipation on the 3rd of July in the American Virgin Islands and the independence that Americans will celebrate tomorrow? What is the difference between theirs and ours? There is a difference, you know. And the difference is this: they fought the British. They overcame the British. Then they could declare their independence. They cut off the ties from their former colonial master, and then they became the masters of their destiny. You are not that yet. We are not that yet. So let's look at what emancipation is.